Hi, this is Alex McGregor with Chasing Luminance Photography, coming to you from a very quarantined Colorado. We did just get the announcement last night that the entire state is under a stay-at-home rule, so we're doing our best to comply with that. But I thought this would give us an interesting opportunity to actually use social media to be social. One good thing that we can do is connect with people all around the world and share ideas and learn from each other. So I've been talking with a guy named Matt Biggs from the Lake District in England, and his Instagram handle is mattbiggs56 if you want to check his work out. And he sent me some pictures from a recent trip to Switzerland. And they look really cool, but they're kind of dark. So I asked him what settings, what camera he was using, and he was actually using something a lot like this. This is the camera that got me started into astrophotography. It's a Canon T2i with a 10mm lens, and he's on a Canon T3i with a very similar lens. So I know that this camera can produce some amazing images, and I think the amazing image is in his files. It just needs brought out in post-processing. So I got his permission, and I got him to send me 20 of his raw files that I'm gonna go ahead and edit and see what we can create with them. So that's what today's video is all about. Now this is one of the unedited raw files that he sent me, and this is the edits that I made to the image in Lightroom. If we look at his metadata, he was shooting for 25 seconds at 12mm, ISO 3200, and f3.5. I like most of his settings he was using here, but he was planning on stacking these images to reduce noise, and when you're going to do that, you can definitely shoot at a higher ISO. So I would recommend bumping this up to 6400. Because building the proper exposure in the camera as opposed to on the computer is the best way of keeping the noise low, we definitely want to work with a higher ISO. And if we look at his histogram, we can see this main peak of his exposure is pretty far to the left. If we did shoot at a higher ISO, we would bring that more closer to the middle, which is the proper exposure. Now jumping into the develop module, to turn this image into this image, the first thing I did was add one stop of exposure, which is similar to shooting at 6400 ISO. I reduced the contrast, increased the highlights, and increased the vibrance and saturation just a bit. A couple of key things, especially when you're going to be stacking these photos, is that you don't want any sharpening or any noise reduction from Lightroom. The next things I did was enable the profile corrections. As you can see, there's a decent bit of vignetting, so this helps to flatten that out and remove chromatic aberrations. So if you make all of these edits to one image, you can hold down Shift and click all the other images that you want to apply those edits to, and click sync. With all of these boxes checked, Lightroom will do all of that editing for you through the rest of the pictures. Now I want to bring all 20 of these images into Sequator, so I'm going to do that by clicking the first one, holding Shift, clicking the last one, right-clicking, going to Export, and I'm going to keep it in the same folder as original. I'm going to put it in a subfolder called For Sequator 2, and I'm going to export all of these as a TIFF. Now that we're in Sequator, we can double click the star image at the top to import everything. We can draw a box around all the images that we want, unclick the ones we don't, and click open. This is going to bring all of these files into this program to stack it. It's going to automatically choose a base image of 3313, which is right in the middle of the stack. The base image is the image that stays still, and all the other ones are aligned to it, so it's good that it's right in the middle. Here we need to choose our output image, and I'm going to choose stack Sequator, and make sure it's in a TIFF file. Click Save. Now under these options, in the composition, we want to have align stars selected, accumulation selected, and down here, freeze ground. If you don't click freeze ground, it will try to align the foreground the same way it does the stars, and it'll end up being blurry. Under sky region, we want to make sure we have irregular mask selected when there's a mountainy foreground here. And as you can see, it brought up this plus sign with this purple ring around it. And this is actually a brush where we can brush in and tell the program where the stars are and where the land is. So I'm going real rough over everything now. And then by using the scrolly wheel on our mouse, we can reduce the size of the brush and get a lot more detailed. And I'm being kind of sloppy because it's really easy to go back over and undo your mistakes by holding down the right click button on your mouse. It inverts the selection. So like there, I went over it, but I can go back and fix that super easy. Now that we told the program where the sky in the foreground is, the only other option I like to have on is this reduce distortion effects and have it set to auto. From here we can click start, and this program will render all of these images together and create a TIFF file that we can open in Photoshop. Now this is the file that Sequator was able to make. We have it opened up in Photoshop, and if we compare it with just one of the singles, we can see that there's a ton of noise that has been taken away. This image is very, very grainy, but once Sequator does its work, it produces a nice clean image like this. And we can compare it to what he was able to get, which is still pretty dark. So stacking, and I think that raising the exposure by the stop in Lightroom and then choosing auto brightness in Sequator was a key part in bringing out all this extra detail. Now in Photoshop, I like to make some edits, and the first thing I do is copy this layer in case we make any mistakes. I'm going to be working in the camera raw filter for most of these edits. I like how the exposure is, so I'm going to leave it just like that. And I want to adjust my white balance temperature. And in order to do that, I increase the vibrance and saturation all the way up to see what we're working with. It's a little too warm. I like a nice gradient of blue and orange in my sky, so I'm going to bring it down some. And I'm also going to reduce the tint, slide it towards the green just a little bit. There, that looks about good. And I'm going to bring these back down to a normal setting. Now I'm going to increase this contrast to make it a little bit more poppy, increase the highlights, decrease the shadows, do the same with the white and the blacks. That's starting to look good. Now a lot of this noise down in the snow can be adjusted by reducing the texture slider. We don't want to go too much because it makes everything too soft, but bringing that down some can help. I'm going to increase the clarity to make it a little more punchy and increase the dehaze to darken it up a bit. Now we're getting a good amount of purple noise still on the top and the bottom, so you can reduce the look of that by going to the HLS adjustments, going to saturation, and decreasing the purple and the magenta saturation. Looks like that's helping out quite a bit. And the light pollution that's right behind these mountains is kind of greener than what is natural. So I'm going to choose our yellow and the hue selection and bring it a little bit more orange. I'm also going to adjust the greens here. Okay, that looks about good. So I'm going to click OK. Now there's still a little bit of noise going on, especially in the snow. So I'm going to use a plugin that you can download from Google. It's called the Nic Collection, and my favorite noise reduction tool is this Define 2 tool. And it does a really good job of automatically reading the noise and analyzing it and reducing it. I'm going to look down in this snow, which was definitely our problem area. And I'm probably going to tell it to reduce the color noise by a bit more. Now that that's done working, the effects are subtle, but if you were to want to print this or blow it up big at all, you definitely want to use this Define tool to help with that noise. I think the last thing I'm going to do is just a levels adjustment to help with the contrast and make it exactly where I want it. Okay, that looks about good. So this is the final result we were able to make, and if we compare it to what we were looking at before, there was definitely a lot of detail hiding in these shadowy areas, and we were able to bring that out. Another thing about Sequator is that if you import too many images into it, it won't really show the stars on the edges. He told me that he used 40 images to stack, and you can see on these edges it didn't really do the right work because those stars actually moved out of his frame for those 40. So using 20 images to stack is a good amount for this focal length, and I think we came up with a pretty nice result here. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and seen that you don't need an expensive full frame camera, a 1.4 aperture lens, or even a tracker to make beautiful nightscape images. You can do it with a simple DSLR like this one. So if you have enjoyed this video, please give me the thumbs up and leave your comments down below of what you learned or anything you'd like to see in the future. And if you'd like me to edit or review one of your photos, you can send an email to chasingluminance@gmail.com and we can definitely make something happen together. So please, as always, give me that thumbs up, subscribe for more videos, and when this quarantine's over and the stars are out, I'll see you there.